Hey, I got one viewer. Hey, James, how's it going, brother? Hey, by the way, James, you wouldn't have to worry about me just praying for you, brother. Because if I was there with you, we'd be both there and we'd have to pray for each other's souls in the morning. I ain't perfect either. Never made the statement that I was. Hey, Kurt, how you doing, brother? Appreciate your comments. Yeah, so, let's see. Little Irish lady. Hey, how are you doing? This is the first time I've ever been live. James is the guilty one. He's been goating me into it now for about a week to go live. So, here you go, James. You said you had a couple questions you wanted to ask me. I'm all ears. What was it that you were wondering about? Probably James is a slow typer. I am in Memphis, Tennessee on the south side at a pilot. I was supposed to be picking up a load this morning. But, oh, tell me your story. How did you get into trucking, etc.? That is a cool story. I'll share that with you in just a second. This shipper that I was supposed to be picking up from this morning, it was a drop-in hook. And so I come on my 10-hour reset, went over there to pick it up. They didn't have the load ready. Said it wouldn't be loaded till Monday. I needed a 34-hour reset anyway. But since I was already tagged on a load, instead of getting a 34-hour reset, I took 2 days detention, 2 days layover. So I got paid for my 34-hour reset. Tell me God doesn't take care of idiots and fools and I get double indemnity, man. That's the way that works. How I got into trucking. I was actually the CEO of a company called KW Enterprises. We were a pallet manufacturing company. I had spurred that off of another company that I worked as a regional director for the sales and the engineering department. And one of our clients at Firestone, they actually had a problem, which I ended up, to solve his problem, I created this company, KW Enterprises, just to solve that one problem for this customer. It was going to be a short run. I figured it was only going to be about 6 months. It ended up being a year and a half. But in this old company I had, KW Enterprises, I leased 2 tractor trailers and 2 53-foot flatbeds because we were hauling pallets. And I hired 2 truck drivers. I had 23 employees working in the warehouse, and 2 tractor trailers and 2 drivers and all that good stuff that went with it. And I was kind of a workaholic when I was younger. It was a Saturday morning and it was like 7 o'clock in the morning. I was sitting there in my office having my morning coffee, and I was looking out the window, and one of my drivers had come in. I didn't require people to work on Saturday. You just come to work on Saturday if you wanted to. One of my drivers had called and said that he was coming in to drive today. So I'm sitting there at my desk, and I watch him come in. He's walking around the truck. This guy was so commode-hugging drunk, he was holding himself up with the truck as he was doing his walk around. I said, oh, mercy, this is not good. We can't have this happening. So I walked out in the parking lot and confronted him about it. I was just going to give him the day off, man. Just take the day off and we can come back Monday. But he ended up bowing up in my face. I ended up firing him over it. And then my warehouse manager come out and said, well, I understand you just fired the driver. And I said, yeah. He goes, well, that causes a problem. We already called Firestone, and they brought in a crew just to unload these trucks for us today. And we're supposed to run 3 loads over there today. And now we don't have a driver. So I went to call the other driver, and he didn't answer his phone Saturday morning. Can't blame him a bit for that, right? So I was in a bind. So I walked into the warehouse, and I had a bunch of employees in there, and I said, hey, anybody in here got a commercial chauffeur's license that can drive one of these big trucks? Nobody raised their hand. I said, okay. Anybody know how to drive one of these big trucks? And nobody raised their hand. I said, okay, has anybody rode with their dad or their uncle enough that they know basically how to operate one of these big trucks? And this one kid, he raised his hand and he goes, yeah, my daddy's a driver. And I said, have you rode with him quite a bit? And he goes, I've rode with him some. And I said, well, do you at least know what all the buttons and the levers are for inside the truck? And he goes, kinda. And I said, well, you're the best I got. Come with me. Now, I wasn't going to ask an employee to do something illegal or take risk. I don't believe in asking a man to do something that you're not willing to do yourself. So I climbed up in the driver's seat and I had him get in the passenger seat. And I remember the first question I asked him. I get up in the big truck and I'm looking around and okay, what's that yellow button and that red button? What do those things do? So that's how I started my trucking career. I ran 3 loads that day, dragging a 53-foot trailer stacked with pallets to 13'6" to front to back. If I remember right, it was 14 pallets per stack, strapping them down and all that good stuff. And it was driving across Oklahoma City in city traffic. That was the day I learned how to drive a tractor trailer. Never driven one before. I loved driving that truck so much that for the rest of the time I had that business, I drove the truck full time. I climbed in the cab, never got out of it. Ran the company with a cell phone. I got a couple funny stories about that. Secretary I had, oh mercy, she was a good looking hammer. Matter of fact, ended up marrying her. I think that was wife number 3. God bless her, each and every one. Oh mercy, she was a long-legged, beautiful woman. But she was always hassling me. She's going, take me for a ride in the truck, take me for a ride in the truck. And I told her, well, if the workload's light one afternoon, I'll take you with me on a run. So we run a load over to Firestone full of pallets. And she's with me in the truck. And this is an old GMC cab over. Back in the days of the cab overs. This is like 1984. Well, anyway, like I said, she was a long-legged, good-looking thing. She was wearing a skirt, and she climbed up in the passenger seat. First thing she does when she gets in the truck, she kicks her high heels off and she puts her feet up on the dash. And of course, that skirt fell all the way back down to her waist. So any other driver I met, all he could see was legs all across the dash of that truck. So we come out of Firestone and we're going by the TA. You probably know where I'm talking about, right there in Oklahoma City on the west side there on I-40, that TA. I'm coming up Council Road from the south. I need to go into the TA and get fuel. So I've got to make a left-hand turn into that TA. Well, there's another old boy coming out, and he's in the cab over also. And I'm having to go around him to get into the TA. And when he looked into my cab and he seen that young lady's legs all over the front of that dash of that cab, you see him reach down, grab the air right of his seat, and he was taking his seat all the way to the top. He took his seat so far high to the top that he couldn't touch the pedals and hit the clutch and the brake anymore. He ended up rolling right into the side of my trailer. The first accident I was ever involved in a tractor trailer. Didn't do any damage to my trailer. And the guy felt terrible about it. He was all apologetic, and I was laughing about it because I said, brother, I saw what you did. You saw that young lady's legs through the windshield of my truck, and you went to the air ride to get a peek. You couldn't reach pedals, could you? And he started laughing. He goes, no, man, I couldn't reach pedals anymore. So that was our first accident in a truck. Oh, mercy. So this is what going live is. I've never been live before. This is a first for me. So what are you up to, James? I'm surprised you're still sitting in the truck where you were spending the night. I figured you'd be out and about. Am I an owner-operator? No. I tell you, I got out of a truck. I'd been out of a truck for 26 years. I come back into the industry a year ago. That's the reason why I call myself the recap rookie. I had to start all over again, man. Nobody would, and I didn't have that much experience anyway. I only had 2.5 years, even though it was owner-operator experience. Why did I leave trucking? To raise family. I got married, raised children, did all that kind of thing. And I had a choice. I mean, I've got an aerospace engineering degree with a minor in marketing and financing. I've got a corporate resume that most guys would die for. I tell you, I hate working for corporate America. Doesn't matter how much money you make, eventually you wake up and you look at yourself in the mirror and you don't like the guy that you see anymore. So I kind of, well, thank you very much. I kind of dropped out of society for a while. I mean, when I dropped out of society, I dropped out hard. Hell, I didn't even pay income tax from 96 to, let's see. Hell, I didn't pay income tax for almost 20 years. So, I kept all my money. I told them that, yeah, and I faced the IRS in federal court twice. Won both times, represented myself. That, you got to choose the battles that you're willing to fight. If you ever hear me talk about the evils of the Federal Reserve Bank, that's kind of where all that stems from. And I didn't like doing business. Easiest way to get away from the devil is quit doing business with him, right? So I consider that paying taxes doing business with the devil. Seems like you can't get that ornery cuss totally out of your life no matter what you do. It is the world that we live in. But man, I love driving a truck. I always love driving a truck. This is one of my favorite things to do. I didn't come back to driving a truck because the money, that's for sure. The reason why I come back to driving a truck is my farm's paid for, my house is paid for, my cows are paid for. Everything's paid for. I do have one kid that's left in college. God bless her little heart. She's a little academic scholar, little brainiac. She does real well, 4.0 student. She's got most of it covered by a scholarship. I don't believe in going in debt, so we don't borrow any money for an education. So I do help support her through college, and she's $7,000 to $1,000 a month to get her through college, and she's almost done. Almost done with her second year. Yeah, I tell you, James, I have that argument with myself every month. Do I want to go back playing owner-op? And that is going to happen. Is it going to happen this April? Or is it going to happen next April? Come April, I will have been back in the business for 1 year. If you look at going owner-operator, your insurance rates, and they don't even consider the experience I had back in the 80s and 90s. Yeah, and that's the reason why I'm going to make that move, James, because of my business experience. I probably won't haul a lot of broker freight. I've already got customers that are calling me that I've done business with over the last 30 years. They're like, hey man, we heard you're driving a truck, and come haul our freight for us. So I can cut out the broker and the middleman. I've got enough business contacts. I can probably have enough freight all on my own. So I want to get my own authority, and I also want to get my brokerage authority all at the same time. And I'm definitely looking at buying a truck. Me and my insurance agent been talking about it. I tell you, if you come into this business and go straight owner-op out of the first day, you're basically going to drive for the insurance company the first year. The insurance rates are outrageous. After 1 year, they drop about half. After the second year, they drop even more. The other thing is about going to owner-operator is you really want to get your authority. Well, not necessarily your authority, but you definitely want to set up your LLC or your incorporation at least a year before you're ready to run hard. The bankers aren't even going to look at you too much until the corporation or the LLC is at least 1 year old. The bankers look a lot more favorable at you when you've got 2 years, and your insurance company looks at you a lot better after 2 years. But if you've got 2 years in the business and you're not an owner-operator, I'm like, what the hell are you waiting for? Same problem right now. I'm looking at what I'm getting paid as a company driver, which I don't feel is squat. I mean, I'm making $1,000 a week, and that's enough to take care of me and my kiddo while she's in college. And I'm just having a blast, man. I'm loving it. The only depressing day I have is on payday. When I look at my paycheck on payday and realize that, man, I used to make that much money in 2 days. And that's 2 weeks. Oh my God, how do I do that? But there's more to being successful than just money. Man, I love driving a truck. I love OTR. I love this lifestyle. I mean, I just have a blast. How do you establish credit with your license? Okay. First of all, if you incorporate, it's not your credit. See, that's the difference between an LLC and a corporation. An LLC is a limited liability corporation. That's mainly only for protection, and it's quasi-protection. They can still actually reach you through an LLC, your personal assets, if you have a problem. A corporation, oh God, I hate corporations. But I'll probably go incorporated when I do it. A corporation is a mythical, fictional entity. It's its own being. All right? So you set up the corporation a year prior to when you really want to start rolling. You're going to find that as soon as you list your corporation, American Express, everybody's going to start throwing money at you. Small Business Association, all these different loans are starting to come at you of how you can get money. That's a corporation. It's a fictional entity. It's its own being. It's not you. All right? So that's what they're talking about when they're talking about business credit. And I'm telling you what, business credit grows a lot faster than personal credit. And as long as that corporation's always paying their bills on time, the bankers look at it and go, oh, we got a cash cow here. Let's all jump on the wagon and get a piece of that. They all want to get your hooks in it. The deal is how long can you do business and not let them get their hooks in you too much? But I have the problem now as a company driver, is I know what they're paying me to haul freight, and I've been hauling mainly freight up north. I call it running the Great White North. I didn't have a whole lot of experience running snow and ice. And to tell you the truth, I was actually pretty scared of it. I'm not anymore. By the end of this year, I will have driven probably 50,000 miles on snow and ice. I've run the Great Lakes for about 5 weeks. I've run back and forth from Minneapolis through North Dakota and Wyoming, over I-80 to Portland and Utah. A few runs. This last run over to Boise, Idaho, going across 90 in that snowstorm, that was pretty wicked. Yeah, we run the Southeast. Right now I'm in Memphis, Tennessee. I ran this load from Boise, Idaho to Memphis. Then I'm picking up a load here in Memphis, running it back up to Minneapolis. And and the load I pick up in Minneapolis is going to go to Pennsylvania. God, I hate going to New Jersey, Pennsylvania, that part of the world. But I haven't been in a while, and other drivers have been taking that hickey for me, and I kind of sucked it up and said, okay, I'll be the company man. I'll take a load to Pennsylvania. I had a choice. I could have taken a load to Kentucky. But actually the load to Pennsylvania was more miles. The only problem is I know with that load that I'm going to get with Pennsylvania, is we don't have a whole lot of freight coming out of Pennsylvania. Most likely they're going to deadhead me up to New Jersey, and I'm going to grab a load out of Elizabeth, New Jersey to bring back to Minneapolis. I don't know that for a fact yet, but you watch. Just as sure as you're betting 2 kittens, I guarantee you that's the way that'll end up working. That's a funny story too, Elizabeth, New Jersey. When I come back in the business, I actually researched, because I was basically realizing that I'm going to drive for a company for a year, maybe 2. You know, I can do anything standing on my head, but I wanted to be as comfortable as possible, at least something that I would enjoy. That's the reason why I come to work for Magnum. I might have been able to make more money other places, but there's no place I'd have been more comfortable than driving for Magnum. Magnum is really cool. They drive the best equipment. We drive brand new Peterbilts. There's not a Peterbilt in the company, I think, that's older than 3 years old. This one I'm in, it's a 2017 Epic, 80-inch sleeper, refrigerator, 1800-watt inverter. You know, I've got everything in here. I've got my color TV, microwave. I mean, I got the APU going right now. I'm about to burn me out of here. I'm going to have to step back there and turn it off. So it's comfortable. This company is real comfortable, and I like the way they do business. They're not all in your pocket, and they're not all looking over your shoulder. The way Magnum runs is they basically give you a new truck, put a credit card in your pocket. They tell you when to pick up and when to drop, and other than that, they don't ever call you. My first year with Magnum, I think I've been to the terminal 3 times. And the only reason why they routed me back to the terminal was to have my my PM done on my truck every 30,000 miles. So, it's a nice, comfortable spot, man. I like it. No hassle, no worry. You know, I heard you, James, you were talking about that. You were talking about the woes of being a company driver. And I hear the way a lot of these guys talk. You know, some of these companies, they want to route you where you get fuel. They want to tell you what route you take and all that type of stuff. Yeah, I thought about going to work for Schneider, you know, because Schneider pays, right? But I just didn't want to live in the micromanaged big mega carrier world, man. I wanted to be a lot more relaxed and kind of enjoy life a little bit more. So what else you got? What else did you want to know, brother? I tell you, I'm thinking about going back owner op. I'll probably just buy a brand new truck too. I have problems on deciding what I want to. Am I a Sooner fan? That's where I went to college. Of course I'm a Sooner fan. But I'm not a big football fan really at all. I don't watch football. But yeah, OU's my alma mater. But yeah, I went to OU. My daughter right now, she's going to OSU. There's a big rivalry. You can't watch me no more. I don't like football. I like football. Don't get me wrong. I watched the last 2 or 3 minutes of the Super Bowl. Hook 'em horns. But and I always watch the OU OSU game. I watch Bedlam. And I try to watch OU Texas. That's always a good game. But other than that, I really don't watch football. So, and I tell you, my deal is with that. It kind of amazes me. All these guys, look, man, I am losing viewers like crazy. I'm down to 2. 2. Why we go live? Yeah, we are very pet friendly. You see, there's my 2 fur balls laying back here in my bed at the moment. They're very pet friendly. You see a lot of drivers with Magnum have their dogs and critters in the truck with them. They do it like this. Their pet policy is basically, for every one pet that you have inside the truck, they want a $500 deposit. Now you think, oh, I've got 2 or 3 dogs, man, that's going to be outrageous. They don't take it all at one time. No matter how big your deposit is, they're only going to take $50 out of your paycheck until you reach your deposit. So they're not going to take all of it at one time. And yeah, like I got 2 dogs with me. My pet deposit's $1,000. When I go to turn my truck back in when I'm done with the company, of course, I get my pet deposit back, as long as my dogs haven't done any damage to the truck. And I'll tell you, my dogs don't do any damage to the truck. So I'll get all my pet deposit back. So yeah, Magnum's real pet friendly that way. Yeah, that's what I was getting at. What do I want to buy as an owner-operator? The smart business move would probably be a Kenworth T, 660, 680. Or Peterbilt 579 Epic. Probably the smartest move would be a Volvo. The Volvo is comfortable. That 12-speed automatic, I mean, there's nothing gets better fuel mileage than that truck. It's just a money maker. That would be the smart move. But do you want to drive a Prius or do you want to drive the Cadillac? So what I'll probably end up is a Pete 389 with an 80-inch sleeper on it. Probably with a Cummins 615 motor in it. 336 rears. And this is where I'm going to surprise you. I'll probably put an automatic 13-speed in it instead of having a manual. I like the manual transmissions. That's what I learned to drive, was 10-speed and 13-speed. I enjoy driving the manual, but I'm just not that macho anymore. I really enjoy driving the automatic. How am I doing now? Oh, you heard my rant? Yeah, I was just on my soapbox earlier. That's what that was about. I get tired of people being mean to each other all the time. But yeah, most likely I'll either get into a 389 Pete or a W900L, one of the two. It's probably what I'll buy new. I'll probably go to that old boy out of Tulsa for my Pete. I forget what his name is. What is his name? See, he always orders a custom Pete's. You can get a custom Pete 389 with a 15 in it, a 13-speed, spec'd out the way I was talking about for about 160 grand. Yeah, I'll probably buy a brand new one. I would rather get into a full maintenance lease is what I'd prefer to do. But the truck I want, I'll probably end up having to buy it. And where the deciding factor comes in there about buying or leasing a truck. Leasing on the truck, every dime that you put out on it, you're going to get to discount off your taxable income. When you buy the truck, you're going to take a higher tax deduction for the first 4 years because you're going to depreciate it out over 4 years. You also get the tax deduction of the interest on the loan on it. But that 5th year, you don't have any depreciation because you've already depreciated the vehicle. And then if you sell the vehicle for $60,000, $70,000 at the end of 5 years, now since you took all the depreciation on it, there's capital gains on it. So there's taxes. And if you ever listen to Jeffrey Like, he probably gives the best class over that I've ever heard about how to do business, and that's the reason why a full maintenance lease is absolutely the smarter way to go. And driving these new trucks, man, these new trucks aren't like the old trucks back in the 80s and 90s. You know, the old trucks that we had back then, you'd run them 1,000,000 miles and you really didn't have to worry about much maintenance on them until they started hitting about 800,000 miles. These new trucks don't run like that, man. They got all this computer crap on them. All that DEF and computer stuff. And they're not made near as heavy as they used to be anyway. What's that say there? Busy isn't a full maintenance lease. Why higher payments than just buying a truck from a dealer? Well, the risk on these new trucks, what I see with these brand new trucks, the problems that these trucks have are generally not mechanical issues. They're computer issues and they're sensor issues. And even though that you've got a warranty on the truck, every time they hook the computer up to it, that's $500 for the diagnostic. That's not covered. Like this truck I'm in, this new Peterbilt, and it has all kinds of computer issues all the time. It's always running fault codes and this, that, and the other, and they got sensors going out on them. And man, if they take all that computer stuff and all the DEF off of them and all the sensors off of them, that'd be a good truck. But the maintenance issues, I think, on the new trucks are the big deal. And the reason why a new truck is I want that full warranty. I don't want that $20,000 maintenance hickey a year. So I don't know. I still haven't made up my mind on it, which way I'm going to go. One day I'm buying a brand new Pete, and next day I'm thinking about buying a $35,000, $40,000 truck and just running the crap out of it. So why not buy an older truck that's pre-emissions? Well, an older truck, you start looking at a 2009, you look at the miles that are on that truck. When you start getting high mileage trucks, you're starting to have mechanical maintenance issues. Rebuilds on motors aren't cheap anymore. That's the reason why I'm a Cummins fan. The Cummins is probably the cheapest motor to rebuild. PACCAR comes into a close second. PACCAR is just basically a simple Cummins anyway. And I'll tell you something else. I never was a PACCAR fan. The little PACCAR that we got in these company trucks has actually impressed me. This is a little 13-liter PACCAR in this Peterbilt, and we run heavy loads. I mean, I'm running 43,000 pounds most of my loads. When we come to a hill, I'm out running everybody up a hill loaded. Little PACCAR downright pulls. I'm surprised. I'm amazed by it. It gets pretty decent fuel mileage too. I'm getting 8 miles to the gallon in this truck, on average. That's my average, 8 miles a gallon. And so not only the cost of the truck, but you actually have, fuel cost is an issue. Fuel cost is probably the number one cost that we have in our business. And then there's also the philosophy of this. If you're worried about your mileage, you're not getting enough on your freight. There's that idea also. When you're pulling freight at $340, $350 a mile, fuel cost isn't near as predominant in your business equation as it was. And that's what I saw the last 5 weeks when I was running freight up around the Great Lakes. All those loads I was carrying, the cheapest one was $3.47 a mile. That's what the company was getting paid on it. Of course, you know that as a company driver, they ain't paying us that on it. I gotta roll down the window. I'm getting hot in here. But I'm kind of a spoiled, rotten kid. I like driving new vehicles. What can I say? What do I consider high mileage on a truck? On a 2009 or earlier, I consider 800,000 miles. In these earlier made trucks, you know, a truck that's only 4 or 5 years old or less, I start looking at them sideways at about 400,000 miles. They just don't build them like they used to. They're not as solid of a vehicle. So, I don't know. I don't have all the answers. I just kind of make it all up as I go anyway, just like everybody else. Here, give me just a second. I gotta get rid of something here. Had to get rid of my tobacco. See, James? I may be a minister, but I'm just like everybody else. I'm weak of the flesh. I got the same sins everybody else does. What's the weirdest shit I've ever seen on the road? How many miles do older trucks get? Probably about, I think a diesel motor is a diesel motor. You shouldn't have to worry about a rebuild till you're starting to get up around 800,000 miles or better. But you know, that's a generality. Hell, you can blow a motor at 400,000 miles. You can blow a motor at 60,000 miles. You rolls your dice and you takes your chances. Majority speaking though, they're all going to run 800 to 1,000,000 miles before they need a rebuild. Hell, you know, some guys run them a lot more than that. You see some of these trucks, 1.2, 1.4 million miles, never had a rebuild on them. Man, I am doing great, Mr. Professor. I'm loving life. Detroit 60 is a 1,000,000 mile or better motor if you take care of it. James, I think they all are. I don't care if it's a Cat, Pack Car, Detroit, Cummins. I think if you take them all, you know, I actually think it's better to run a bigger motor soft than it is to have a little motor running hard. So that's kind of my philosophy when it comes to motors. But I'm no expert, man. I'm a rookie. I don't have all the answers. I tell you what, as an engineer, the engineer side of me says, yeah, you're absolutely right, man. It's the emissions that's killing these motors today. The engineer side of me tells me the hardest wear that you have on any mechanical device is caused by vibration. The stronger the frame that you set a motor in, the better off that motor is going to be. You can run that motor hard, but if you can manage the vibration out of it, it'll do better no matter what motor it is. That's the engineer side of me talking. That's the reason why I like the Peterbilt 389. She's got a good frame, man. You got a good solid frame. And then you stretch it out to 295 inches and throw an insert in the frame and just screw that idea up. But it looks cool, right? You got to go with the cool factor. You know, life ain't all about money. Hey, we're all rookies, man. We're all rookies. And I tell you, that's one of the things you'll find out when you come out here is when some of these guys start talking like they're the expert, like they've got all the answers, they know everything. Man, there's a bit of advice you need to take as a grain of salt. Ain't nobody out here got all the answers, man. We're all just making it up as we go. Keep your mouth shut, listen to as much as you can. You know, take a little bit of this or take a little bit of that, but at the end of the day, it's going to come down to your own decisions. It's hard being a pimp these days. Yeah, that's for sure. You just do your best, man. You roll your dice and you take your chances. Oh, mercy. See, this is the thing that I don't like about live feeds, James. Look, we've been on here for 41 minutes. It seems like live feeds, they end up going on forever and ever and ever. But I do enjoy this business. I love the lifestyle. You know, if I wasn't in this truck, I tell you, I'd be sitting at home staring at four walls, petting the dog. I can do that in this truck. I would just as well be in this truck going down the road, looking at the highway, looking at the world, as I would sitting at the house. I find this a whole lot more fun, a lot more entertaining. I don't ever get bored. Some people talk about being lonely on the road. I don't get lonely. I don't get lonely. Now, I like people. I love talking to people. I like interacting with people. I mean, I love people. But I just don't get lonely. I enjoy my time alone. Matter of fact, I demand it. What's my favorite state? Well, my favorite state's going to be my home state, of course, Oklahoma. But I find that all of the states have something pretty about them. I love driving through Wisconsin. I do both. I prefer to drive during the day, but it doesn't matter to me day or night. I'll drive. I don't drive a solar truck. If you ever heard that saying, a lot of these solar trucks, a lot of guys, as soon as the sun goes down, they're looking for a parking spot. I run my miles. I run my 600 and 650 miles every day. If I have to run through the night to do it, no big deal. Plus, I'm pulling a reefer. So a lot of times, like my drop last night, my order on my drop was just to make sure I made my drop before midnight. Well, they didn't even open the gate till 11 o'clock at night. When you're pulling a reefer, frozen foods, these grocery distributors, they mainly work the wee hours of the morning. So most of your freight's coming in and out in between 11 o'clock at night and 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning. So whenever you're that's the reason why I like the long runs. I like the 1,400 mile, 1,900 mile runs. That way, it's, I don't have that much broken sleep. You know, one night every 3 or 4 days, I have a night of broken sleep. As long as I'm making the long runs. You know, somebody put in there, it's hard to make 600 miles on a Qualcomm. I don't think so. I've been on e-logs now this whole year. I'd never run e-logs before. I don't have problems running 600 miles on my e-logs a day. Matter of fact, I generally run my 600 and 650 miles and generally end up having 2 hours left over on my 14-hour clock every day. Was I nervous when I first started driving a truck? Oh, you betcha. Sometimes I still am. Especially at night when it's raining and it's hard to see the lines on the road. I get a little, You know, but if you find that you're starting to leave fingerprints in the steering wheel, just slow down a little bit. That's my advice on that. There are some nights it just scares the crap out of you. I used to be really scared about driving on snow and ice. The whole idea of driving on snow and ice, I just thought was insane. But I've done it all winter. Seems like everywhere I go, I've been on snow and ice this winter. Of course, I've been running the Great White North, and I've got used to it. I've got comfortable with it. And I think the more experience you get, the more comfortable you're going to get. Drive a little faster, you'll make your 600. If you're a company driver, most likely you're going to be in a governed truck. This, our 2015 trucks, they're governed at 64 mile an hour on the pedal and 64 mile an hour on the cruise. Our newer trucks, they've even slowed them down. These are governed at 62 miles an hour on the pedal and 64 on the cruise. Yeah, I've driven on some black ice. Yeah. If you've got wet conditions on top of ice, I park it. And if it's if the snow's so heavy you got to chain up, I don't chain up, I park it. How often do I go home? Now that I don't do very often. I stay out 6-8 weeks at a time. Does Magnum take? I stay out 6 and 8 weeks at a time. Just there ain't nobody at home for me, brother. My kid's in college. There's no wife at the house, so there's no reason for me to go home. I'd just as well be running, so I stay out. Magnum does let you go home anytime you want to. All you got to do is put in for your home time. Like I put in for home time this morning. I sent him an email, told him that I wanted to be home because I've got a physical to take for my VA benefits on the 21st. So I just told him I wanted to be home on the 20th. I've got a doctor's appointment on the 21st. I want to get reloaded on the 22nd and be gone. And Magnum's been really good. Every time I've ever requested home time, they've always got me home exactly when I asked. They've never missed a home time request for me. I've never been denied for home request. And I hear the same thing from the other drivers, even the drivers that are going home every 2 weeks. They rarely ever have an issue when it comes to their home time. Does Magnum take drivers right out of the gate? You betcha. Have a really good training program. They've got good trainers. I can't say enough of Magnum. They're a good company, man. You'll be happy here. You know, it's a trucking company. It ain't perfect. All of them are going to have their goods and bad points. You'll probably have more freedom with Magnum than you have with anyone. Do they take a driver right out of the gate as soon as you get your CDL? Yes. Here's the hickey, though, with getting on with Magnum. Straight out of the gate. Yeah, there's nothing perfect. I'm a good example of that. But with Magnum, they'll take you as a brand new CDL holder right out of school if you have a school certificate. Now, if you know what I did, I went and got my CDL without going to school. Where is Magnum located? We have 2 terminals. We've got a terminal in North Dakota, and we've got a terminal in Minneapolis. One's in Fargo, North Dakota. That's really home base. The bigger terminal, though, is actually in Coon Rapids, which is on the north side of Minneapolis, Minnesota. With Magnum, though, don't worry about so much where the terminal is, because you're not going to be there. I think I've been to the home terminal 3 times since I've been with Magnum. We just don't go there. Minneapolis, Coon Rapids, it seems like I'm through that terminal about every 2 weeks. Because what they'll do is they'll run you into Minneapolis. You'll pick up freight. They've got a lot of their own customers. They've got a big warehouse. They've got an LTL operation going out of Minneapolis and Fargo, North Dakota. So they have a lot of day cab trucks, that type of stuff for the local drivers. They just built a brand new facility. That they're growing good. But what I was going to get back is, as long as you have a certificate of completion for getting your CDL from an accredited school, you can come right to work for Magnum. As you know, I didn't go to school to get my CDL, but I decided that I wanted to go to school with Magnum. Magnum would not recognize my experience because I'd been out of a truck for 26 years. and mainly it was their insurance company. I needed a certificate from a school. So even though I already had my CDL and I had a bunch of other job offers from other companies, what I did was I called around and I found a refresher course. There was a little school down in Lawton, Oklahoma that would give me the 4-day refresher course. It was $750, and that gave me my school certificate of completion to give to Magnum, so I got hired right out of the gate. Stayed out 10 months, about lost your mind. Recommend home time. Yeah, I hear other drivers say that too, man. When they say, man, you stay out for 6 or 8 weeks. Man, if I was out for 6 weeks, I'd be banging my head on the inside of the cab. It doesn't bother me. I like running. So it's worked out for me that way. If I was a new driver coming in the business, now in my situation, Magnum was the perfect fit. If I hadn't come to work for Magnum, I'd probably went to work for Prime. Prime pays well right out of the gate, so does Schneider. The problem I have with Schneider is they just micromanage the crap out of you. And it seems like the pumpkin patch is a little bit of brainwashing. Seems like once they get into the pumpkin patch, they can't get out. They think Schneider's the only thing. I don't know. I don't mean to be bashing Schneider. I'm sure they're a good company. I just don't like the way they micromanage you to death. They're constantly in your hip pocket. They're constantly looking over your shoulder. You know, you got to lace your shoes left over right. You can't lace them right over left. I'm making it funny, but probably not over exaggerating too much. I'm not a safety Sally. I'm not one for the laws and the rules so much. I think it's better that a guy make a decision for himself of what's good and bad. And as long as you have other people in mind and you being considerate of others, I think you're probably doing okay. I think that's the big thing as a CDL driver. God's entrusted you basically to drive an elephant through the circus tent of life, right? Your job is to do two things. Deliver the freight and don't step on any monkeys in the way. So if you can do your day, you don't damage anybody else's equipment, you don't damage your own equipment, you don't step on any of the monkeys and hurt anybody's feelings, you've had a good day. When I did paper logs, did you cheat? Hell yes. When I did paper logs, hell, I was actually known for not even doing my logs for weeks at a time back in the 80s. They weren't the logs back in the 80s, man, in 1984. Nobody give a crap about your log book. The only time, most of my stuff was interstate, within the state of Oklahoma. But every once in a while, I'd run a load of doubles up to Portland, Oregon and back. Now, when I ran the long haul, when I was going through multiple states, I always ran my logs. But if I was just staying in Oklahoma, I didn't run logs. And I don't run, I'll be honest, I don't run these e-logs absolutely legit the way that the federal government wants them run anyway. I'm legal on them. I mean, I can pull into a DOT, take an inspection and an audit on my logs, and I am 100% AJ Skippy it all the time. But I will tell you that I definitely walk the edge of what's legal and what's not when it comes to my e-logs. For instance, when I dropped that load last night at 11 o'clock, I actually got there at 9 o'clock. And when I got there at 9 o'clock, I went ahead and did my DVIR, my end-of-day inspection report. And I logged off and went off duty at 9 o'clock. They opened the gates at 11 o'clock. I dropped my load and unloaded everything totally off the clock so that I had my 10-hour reset by 5 o'clock in the morning, 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, so that I could run if I needed to. And it was 11 miles from where I made my drop to outlaw minister. We're all outlaws, brother. It's just what degree you're willing to confess to. So it was only 11 miles down here to my pickup this morning. So I never did log into my e-logs. I ran that 11 miles off the clock. And I wouldn't have started my clock until I picked up my dropping hook. And once I was hooked and ready to pull out the gate, and I had paperwork in hand, I'd pull out the gate, I'd park for 5 minutes, do my pre-trip inspection. And, hey, Jay Canal, what you say, brother? So, Jay, this is my first live feed. And, Jay, I think I've seen every one of your videos that you've ever produced. Well, Jay, it's probably not a big treat. But, yeah, so I run my logs. If I go through an inspection, I'm going to be absolutely legal. But do I run them legit? I definitely walk the edge with them, that's for sure. When like, for instance, when you pull into a fuel island, you're fueling, you should be on duty for 15 minutes to do your fuel. I don't, man. As soon as I get in line for the fuel island, I go off duty. I never fuel on duty. I always fuel off duty. So, I work that clock as much as I can. They don't pay me for doing inspections. They don't pay me for on-duty time. They pay me for driving miles. So I leave that clock to drive as many miles as I possibly can, and I work it to my advantage. And like I said, I've pulled DOT inspections and audits, and I've never been given a hassle over that. You just learned a good thing this week. What was that, Professor? You learned a good thing this week. So, Professor, what was it that you learned? Unfortunately, you have to text, so it's probably going to take you a minute to type. Oh, I don't know if I need a whole lot of promotion. I kind of like keeping it small there, brother. As some of the YouTubers say, they grow their channel organically. I gain, a member or two or 3 or 4, every week, and it's slowly growing over time, and it's getting a little bigger. I just went over, I saw your promotion there, Jay, where you send in a video and you would put it on your channel. Man, I really appreciate the offer, and I thought that was really cool that you were going to share a little bit of the glory and promote other people that way. But I'm happy just trucking along here as I do. I tell you what, Jay, the number one video that I like to promote, and this is a personal thing with me. A lot of these people that are coming into the business, watching them come into the business, it's like watching the vultures circle over a dead skunk in the desert. Man, it's like, fresh meat here for the pickings. I see the way that these young guys coming into the business, as far as I'm concerned, they just get raped coming into the business. When they want $5,000 or more for a school. When I went out and interviewed the different schools in around the Oklahoma City area, like American Trucking School, they wanted $7,000 for tuition. Well, nobody has $7,000, so then they finance it for you. Then you're on the hook for $9,000. So you're coming into a new business, getting your first job, and you're starting off in $9,000 in debt. I don't think that's a smart move at all. So I actually did a video called CDL Without School. I think it's got 12,000 views so far. That's my #1 video that I've put out. And I did that for that purpose, to show people how to come into business, get their CDL. Because, come on, let's face it. These schools are not teaching people how to be a truck driver. They're not teaching them how to drive these trucks. They're not. They're teaching them how to pass the test. And I don't think you need $5,000 to learn how to pass a test. Also, the research that I was looking at in the different schools, that when you actually got down to the nut cracking about it, and you looked at how many instructional hours they actually had behind the wheel driving the truck themselves, I saw numbers as low as 5 and 8 hours of actually driving a truck before they went down and got their license. So these CDL schools, yeah, they get them through there and they get their license, but man, like you say, at that point in time, they are absolutely nothing but a danger and an 80,000-pound murdering piece of machinery out on the road. I don't think you learn how to drive a truck in school. You learn how to get your license. That's all that it's for. Once you get your license, no matter where you go to work, they're going to train you. Yeah, garbage grinder schools for sure. Once you go to work for a company, they're going to teach you how to drive. They're going to put you in a truck with a trainer, and you're going to drive for 30 days as a minimum. Learn how to drive a truck. One of the things and there I think you have to be also careful about the company that you go to work for. I hear some of these companies, yeah, you're in a trainer truck, but they're not running it as a trainer truck. They're running it as a team truck, which means the trainer is asleep in the bunk and the student's driving the truck. That's not training as far as I'm concerned. I do like the way that Magnum does it. If the student is in the driver's seat operating the vehicle, the trainer has to be awake, alert, and giving instruction in that right seat. If the trainer isn't in the right seat, watching everything you do and giving you instruction on what you're doing, you don't drive the truck as a student driver with Magnum. I like that. I think that's important. If you're going to train somebody to drive a truck, train them how to drive a truck. I think Prime has a pretty good training program from what I see as well. You know, and a lot of people make fun of Swift. We can make all the fun, and I think Swift catches more flack because of the numbers that they get. Look at the amount of trucks. And the other thing is, man, when you see their trucks coming in, they're all beat to crap from guys tearing bumpers off of them and everything else. But I've actually learned some good points off of some of the Swift training videos. Like one of my weakest thing when I come back in the industry was my backing. Man, I'll tell you, I'd been out of a truck for 26 years. I remember back with the old cab over and a 53-foot flatbed, man, I could stick that trailer anywhere I wanted to. I was absolutely known back in the 80s and 90s at being able to put a tractor trailer in places where they said that they weren't supposed to go. Then I'd been out of truck for 26 years and come back, and all the skills seemed to come back pretty quick except the backing. And the one problem I had more than anything, doing offset left, offset right, oh, that was cake. Doing a parallel park, driver's side or passenger side, that's cake. Those were easy for me. The one thing I suck at is a 90-degree alley dock. I suck at doing 90s. And I'm still not the best in the world at it. I turned my 90-degree alley docks into 45s or as much as possible. And if I got enough room, I'm going to swing around in a 180 and do a straight back in if I can. But some of the lots, like I was at one this morning that was tight, and I had to do a 90-degree driver's side, to get into the hole. I turned it into as much as a 45 as I could and backed her in the hole. I did okay. I had a couple of pull-ups. To me, backing is kind of like shooting pool. Some days, man, you just see it. You see all the angles. Everything goes perfect. And it doesn't matter how good you are at backing. Some days you just can't freaking hit the hole. But I've only been back in the business, not quite a year yet. And it seems like my backing's getting better and better. But since I run long haul, I don't get a whole lot of opportunity to back. I only back in, once every 3 or 4 days. So, yeah, it's not my strong suit. I'm getting better at it. I had to do, some of these spots, man, are so dadgum tight. I had to do I forget where this was. It was a cold storage. But man, their lot sucked. It was crowded. It was nothing but asshole to elbow trucks in this lot. It was tight. And the way that this lot was set up, if you had door in between 20 and 40, you could go in and do a 180 and do a 90-degree driver's side into the dock, which wasn't too bad. But if you got door 1 through 12, the only way that you can get into door 1 through 12 was to actually do a right side blind, passenger side blind 90 into the hole. I did it. I will tell you that I took 3 get out and looks to do it, but I got it in there. So my philosophy is we can make fun of all that we want to. But if you get it in the door, if you back her in the hole, I don't care how many pull-ups you take. As long as you don't damage your equipment, you don't damage the guy next to you, and you get her centered on the door when you back in, that's a good dock. They don't pay you extra for doing it with no pull-ups. I take as many pull-ups as I want to make sure I'm safe. I think that's probably my number one worry in this business, is that I'm going to tear up somebody else's piece of equipment. I'm getting more and more comfortable with that and better at it every day, but seems to be coming along a lot slow. I don't feel near as proficient at it today. And the other reason is this. I mean, come on, back in the 80s when I was playing owner-operator, I was driving a cab over. We can talk all the crap that we want to about the rough riding cab over, but there is nothing that backs in to a dock better than a cab over. I mean, a little short. It's like a yard jockey, man. Nothing backs better than a cab over. And that's what I was driving back then. Man, I could put that deadgum truck anywhere I wanted to. I don't think getting out and looking is a bad thing. When in doubt, get out and look. Well, you guys, we have definitely exceeded over an hour for my first live feed. That was a whole lot more. That's the one thing I've got against live feeds, is everybody does these live feeds and they're like an hour, hour and a half. Man, I don't have an hour and a half to watch somebody, and I don't expect somebody to spend that much time watching me either. But I'm going to get out of here, get off of here. I want to thank each and every one of y'all for coming in the chat. It's pretty cool. I kind of like the interaction thing. I may do this again. I don't know. James, I really appreciate you for goating me into it. Kurt, thanks for the comments that you've been leaving. The professor, cool that you stopped by. What was her name? Was it Elizabeth? Why do I want to say Elizabeth? Oh, DJ Sugar Bear, I appreciate all your comments on my channel as well. Where is she? Oh, the little Irish lady. Yeah, she's working on her CDL. Thanks for coming in and hanging out with us for a little while. That's really cool. We need more ladies in trucking, man. More ladies in trucking for sure. I'm totally pro in that area. Anyway, guys, I'm going to get out. Jay Canal, man, thanks for walking by and sneaking a peek at my channel today. It's an honor. Anyway, guys, I'm going to get out of here. We'll see y'all later. God bless each and every one of you. Remember, as you go through your day, be kind to each other. Bye-bye.